What's the craziest thing that happened in a party during your high school and college years? I saw a 140-pound French-Canadian tear a sink out of a wall, run outside, and smash it to pieces against a tree. By the time we'd woken up the next morning, he'd already gone to Home Depot, brought a new sink, and installed it in the bathroom. French at night, Canadian by day. First they're sour, then they're sweet. One of my friends and I were at a house party. She drank 8 shots of tequila, one right after the other, and then proceeded to do the deed bareback up the butt on the front lawn while everyone watched. Not one of her finest moments. She's a Mormon now, apparently. We had a pet raccoon for 2 days, long party, who would hang out with us. We thought he was a nice furry guy, but then he betrayed us. We were pretty drunk, he left, came back with friends, looted our house. I don't want to be anti-raccoon, but it's hard for me to trust them now. If you read this, Fritz, reconsider. Come back and we'll start over. Sly Cooper strikes again. Hey, don't be raccoonist, dude. I got drunk off my butt and wandered off to McDonald's, which was like a mile off campus. I don't remember even leaving, but I got a call a week later from the McDonald's saying I didn't get the job because I didn't go to the interview. I guess in my drunken state I got there and realized I had no money, so I must have sat there and applied for a job. Didn't remember a thing. They called to ask if I wanted to reschedule, but my reaction was, "What the frick are you talking about?" So they kindly informed me that they didn't need my assistance. The dude must have thought I was an idiot. I should have explained that better. That's probably how most people start working at McDonald's. It's a contract bound in blood. Their own blood. Got busted by a police helicopter while drinking at the lake. Spotlighted us and yelled at us over a bullhorn to stay while 6 officers, complete with 2 K9 units, came down to where we were, gathered everybody up, walked us to where we parked our cars, searched us, cited one kid for having green herb, and then let us all go. It was pretty surreal. In conclusion, drank a couple of Keystones, got a 5-star wanted level. I forgot to include my favorite part of the story, so I'd rode to the party with 4 of my good friends. All of us were 17, except one dude who was 18, but being idiot teenagers, we all smoked cigarettes. They pretty much caught us by surprise with the spotlight. I mean, seriously, who the frick expects a police helicopter? So we didn't have time to ditch anything. There were about 20 of us altogether, so when we were all being escorted back to our cars in a big group, us 4 managed to pass our smokes off to the one guy old enough to have them. When the cops searched us, my friend ends up pulling 5 packs of cigarettes and 2 or 3 cans of chewing tobacco out of his cargo shorts and sets them on the hood of his car. The cop is not impressed and is like, "Son, you want to tell me why you have so much tobacco?" And I crap you not, with a straight face, my friend just replies, "Because I like a little variety." In fairness to the cop, that answer sounds really shady. I can definitely understand why he thought you were covering for something. Last year, a few of my friends hosted a party at their house. The toilet got clogged and everyone just kept using it and layering toilet paper up, eventually rendering the toilet useless. So now everyone who had to pee did so in the bathtub. Same thing happened and now the bathtub is clogged. By the time any of the guys who lived there heard about it and walked upstairs to the bathroom to investigate, you have to walk past the laundry room to get there, they see a girl sitting on the dryer taking a tinkle in it. She claimed that multiple girls did it right before her, so she thought it was okay. In conclusion, girls are more disgusting than boys. Why the frick didn't everyone take a tinkle outside? It was a duplex-style house, they lived on the top floor and some other girls lived below them with no interior stairs between the two, so everyone who came had to come up the stairs outside and into the second floor. The cops busted it and said there were probably 200 plus people there, all on one floor and on the steps outside. Not a lot of space to move. Plus, we live so close to our uni's campus, the idea is to keep everyone inside to avoid both university and city police shutting it down. I had a friend who lucked into a very well-paying job right out of high school. He would pay for hotel rooms to party in, and as we all still lived with our parents, it was a cool thing to do, I guess. We had a party one night when Nickelback was playing in our city, and the opening band was the Trues. We didn't really care about the show, we just happened to want to party that night. Around 2 AM, I left the room for some reason, and there was one super drunk dude carrying a bus bin full of booze. He insisted I was the guy from the Trues and followed me back to the room and got us all a bit drunk. We kept saying that we weren't the Trues, but he really thought we were, and at the end of the night, well, early morning, he left and said he was a huge fan and it was an honor to party with his favorite band, and he drove all the way from Ontario to see us. So somewhere in Ontario, there's a guy who tells all of his buddies that he partied with the Trues. Oh, and another time my buddy shattered a hotel room toilet with 2 lesbians. Can you elaborate on that last bit, please? Well, we were a bunch of awkward dudes fresh out of high school. Sometimes the hotel parties were absurd and crazy, and other times it was just a bunch of guys sitting around laughing at our buddy for buying a hotel room for a bunch of dudes. The lesbian night was one of the more intense parties. A friend of mine found a guy we went to high school with on the bus with 2 lesbians. They were the last people to arrive to the already overcrowded hotel room, and there wasn't much space left. The lesbians hung out in the bathroom, and the guy who brought the room, let's call him Jamie, really had to pee. They said something to him that involved him peeing in there while they watched. He went for it because beer, and nobody else went in there for about 20 minutes. After 20 or so, the 3 of them stumble out laughing, and Jamie told me to go look. Sure enough, the whole gosh darn toilet was shattered. No blood or anything, but that thing was wrecked. He never explained how it happened, but I'm sure it was a good time. I think we got booted out of the hotel at like midnight that night, which was a record. To everyone in the hotel industry, I apologize for being that guest. We were young and dumb. I'm in the industry myself now, and anytime I deal with a real butthole guest, I know it's karma coming back. The host of the party decided to get into his unregistered car without license plates, without insurance, and without a license, and as drunk as the day is long. He drove the wrong way through a traffic circle, roundabout, and ran into a road sign. His best friend then screamed his name across the road, a neighbor called the cops, told them his name, etc. He was taken in and blood tested with 2.2 milliliters. He was let go, but he can't reapply for his license until 2018. Original post from 2014. Invite a friend over to drink late night. 10 minutes later, he calls us saying he's in the living room. He's nowhere to be found. I look outside to see 2 cop cars and his car in the neighbor's driveway. Turns out he walked to my friend's neighbor's house, drunk off his butt, asking where we were at like 2 a.m. A girl got drunk and passed out. Some guys pooped on her face and took pictures. This happened 2 to 3 years ago. She has a lot of Twitter followers now. High school, my house party. Guy asks me if he can shoot some other kid and shows me a gat. I tell him not on my property and not at my party. He apparently respected that. Later, he gets drunk and cuts his own stomach open, about 1 inch deep, 8 inches wide. You can clearly see each layer of skin and fat. He then goes around talking with it like it's Jim Carrey's rectum. We eventually convince him much later to go to the hospital, as he previously refused because he was afraid they were going to commit him to the psych ward. But by then, they told him it had been too long and they could only debride and dress it. He has a massive scar now, although he's much more sane and stable these days. 2 guys fought over a homely girl. One later pulled a knife on the other while he was asleep and attacked him through the neck. Stabber, blood alcohol content of around 0.3 if I recall correctly, has no memory of the event, and he did 15 years in jail. The stabbee had a blood clot, led to a stroke, led to debilitating brain damage. Took him about 10 years to recover his mental faculties. One of my best friends was thrown out of a window in the buff while doing the deed with a girl. Was he mid-coitus while in the air? I feel like you should have disclosed this. He gave a flying frick. So the whole story of this is that this is my best friend who just has women fall into his lap. Charisma out the wazoo. He goes to the club in town and winds up meeting a girl there. They dance it out, their feelings I guess, though a dance battle for supremacy could be cool, and he winds up going to a party with this girl. Well, apparently at some point at this party she told her friends that this other guy was trying something untoward towards her. And then later she dragged my friend upstairs for the doing of the deed. They're happily plowing away when the friends burst in, thinking that my friend is the other guy she talked about, committing the unspeakable act. Hijinks ensue, friend goes out the window, girl explains, and they let him back in. Now, I don't know if he kept his hard eggplant on this whole time, but I like to think that he came back in and then he came back in. This is also the guy who had a Ukrainian exotic dancer pull him into the shower to have fun with him. Some say she's still out there saving up funds to pull him into another bathroom and do it all again. I mean, I desperately want the entire life story of the defenestrated, charismatic Ukrainian dance seducer to be real, but dare I hope? It sounds too great to be true. I would kill for his autobiography if it is. Guy walked into the party and no one knew him. He walked around for a few minutes, then pulled out a piece, shot the refrigerator 2 times, and then calmly walked out. I live in Isla Vista, where basically Party Central is located on a street right on the cliffs over the ocean. I was at an AITA day party, everything is all good, people were intoxicated and having a good time. Then all of a sudden we hear screams and people start freaking out. Someone fell off the cliffs. Turns out it was my friend who went over to his death. That was definitely one of the most crazy and traumatic experiences of my life, along with the shootings that happened here in Isla Vista last weekend. Moral of the story, don't pee off cliffs into the ocean when you are blackout drunk. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. College. Guy goes upstairs to pass out. Girl is already in the bed of his choosing. Amazing sounds of them doing the deed. Morning after, horrible screaming. Guy and girl turn out to be siblings. Was at a Halloween party and passed out on top of a cooler. I was awoken by my friend saying that the cops were there and we had to run. So my friend and I were dressed up as a geisha girl, Cinderella, Abby Cadabby, and Tinkerbell, all running down the road trying to avoid an MIP. We make it to a 7-Eleven and call my friend's boyfriend to take us home. He shows up dressed as Batman and intoxicated. He drives us home and on his way home gets pulled over and flees on foot. He then goes home and reports that someone in a Batman costume stole his Jeep and got away with it. Went to a house party freshman year of high school in Europe. It was this rich girl's apartment in a pretty high building, 10 to 12 stories. She lived on the top floor of this building, and after getting drunk and a little high, towel-y style, I started feeling pretty confident in myself. She had a small balcony and it was next to her neighbor's balcony, which was about a 2-meter gap of nothing all the way down in between. In my drunken stupor, I decided that moment would be the first time I said, "Hold my beer." I stood up on the handrail and jumped across to the other balcony and back completely drunk. The second jump really put how high up I was into perspective, when I looked down in the middle of the jump. Landed safely, but gosh, that could have ended poorly. Happened leaving a party. High school. 3 of my white friends went to juvenile detention and I didn't, even though I was in the same car busted for green herb. I'm black, but I'm also a smooth talker. More details, it was all their stuff and I barely even touched it, so I wasn't willing to take equal punishment for cruising with them. I was like, "Please officer, I haven't touched it, and I still have a curfew. If you're going to hold me, I need you to let me contact my parents." They called my mum to come pick me up. Friends say I wimped out. I say I played my cards right. Those officers probably tell that story all the time right before they say, "See, I'm not racist." Oh, that one was totally cool. It was so weird. I was messing around with my friend, beatboxing and white boy dancing to ourselves, and some black guys came over and started rapping to our beatbox. Then someone got shot and I ran to my car, but on my way a pizza place, Diamond Pizza, was closing and gave me free pizza. Yes, this happened in Philadelphia. On a break from college, my friends all got together for a small party. One of my best friends brought her new boyfriend that none of us had met. I guess he was really nervous and trying to show off because he challenged all the guys there to a shot contest in which he claimed he could take 3 shots for every one they took and still not get drunk. Well, you can imagine how that ended up. He got obliterated. Long story short, he ended up breaking a marble table, how? Choking out his girlfriend, our friend right in front of us, and ultimately pulling a piece on the guys that tried to drive him home, essentially creating a small-scale hostage situation in front of the house. Scariest night of my life, not knowing if my friends were going to get shot as we were hiding inside the locked house. Luckily, the cops came with no problems, and he spent a week or 2 in jail. I've got a few from just one night. My best friend, our substance dealer, was having a huge house party. Probably 60 to 70 of us there, nearly everyone tripping balls. Long story short, the cops have us all lined up against a wall, chewing butt and searching our pockets. Cop finds a little balloon full of white powder on my buddy next to me. "What's this, huh? You gonna tell me what this is?" My friend, screaming and spitting in the cop's face, "It's flour, you frickin' pig!" I was trying so hard not to laugh I was shaking. It was flour. We were stuffing it in balloons and playing with it. Almost 25 years later, we're still laughing about it. "You get the crime lab results back on that balloon?" "Yes, sir. They said they made gravy with it." I saw a guy on substances eat some other guy's ear. We were having the good old parties back in college when a guy went crazy. He literally ripped the dude's ear off and started munching on that little fricker. Someone called the cops and he was arrested. 2 years later, he was arrested again when a number of minors were found in his basement. Watched a girl get launched through the back of a car window. The evils of alcohol, man. It was a fight between a friend and her significant other at the time. Events like this happened frequently when they drank together, though never this serious. We were all out in the street, they were screaming at each other and swinging around violently. He just picked her up and threw her, through the windshield. This guy was pretty big, but my friend is also 5'1", maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. Somehow, she didn't press charges, but the police did. Lots of people were subpoenaed, but because everyone was too hammered to correctly or accurately recount the incident, it got thrown out. Oofed. When I hear about instances like this, I can see why so many people think that green herb should be the default party substance over alcohol. Whole new set of problems, but stories like this make you think at least the aggression would be toned down. The foreign exchange student from Sweden took too much of a certain substance and ended up dancing in the living room with his pants and briefs pulled down. There he was in the living room of a massive party with his tiny little eggplant swinging back and forth. He was kicked out and kept coming back dancing with his pants at his ankles. He came back the next day to apologize. It was his first week being a foreign exchange student at our school. Yes, a meme was made. The image is literally ingrained into my psyche. His eggplant was so small. I was at a going-away party for somebody I didn't know very well, but I knew many of the people that were there and they'd invited me. There were maybe 30 to 40 people there. About 2 hours into the party, a few of my friends and I decided to go and have a smoke on the front porch. I met the person that we were having the party for, I'll call him Chris for the sake of this story, and we seemed to get along nicely. Chris was a good guy. After a few minutes of conversation, he walked back into the house, leaving me and my buddies outside. That's where everything went nuts. These two girls had shown up to the party and nobody seemed to want them around. I didn't know them personally, but I knew that they were not the kind of people you'd want to associate with. I heard some arguing just behind me at the entrance of the house, a few feet away between the girls that just arrived and Chris. Chris was asking them very nicely to leave the party as they were causing a disturbance to the other guests. These two girls were having absolutely none of that and continued to scream utterly stupid crap into his face without listening to what he had to say. This went on for about a minute or so I started to ignore what was going on and just continued to talk to friends. Suddenly I heard a scream and somebody yelled, "You stabbed him, you crazy freaking B-word!" I quickly turned around and one of the girls had stuck a knife into his stomach and there was blood everywhere. The girl pulled the knife out of him and began to run down the street. The police came and rushed Chris to the hospital, but unfortunately he didn't make it and died in the ambulance. The girl was caught after about 2 days in the city next to mine. I went to court as a witness, as did many others, and the girl is getting 15 years in jail. I wish she got life because she deserves to rot. Come July and it will be 2 years ago that this happened now. In conclusion, I went to a party where someone was killed over asking these girls to leave his own going-away party. A friend of mine thought it would be hilarious to take a dookie hanging from a tree. So he climbed up about 25 feet, dangled by his legs around a branch, then proceeded to drop a huge fudge dragon right into the back of his white t-shirt that he was wearing. Rave party in a church. Some dreadlocked dude in a Jesus costume did the deed with a girl in the priest booth above the DJ stage. I was outside peeing in some nice bushes when I looked up and holy frick, Aurora Borealis. Living in Washington, this has never happened before. I proceeded to run inside to tell everyone, but they thought I was just drunk. In their defense, I was, and very enthusiastic, and making crap up. Their loss. Aurora Borealis. At this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen. So this one time I went down to visit my friends in Cork. 2 of them were twins and throwing an 18th. It was a great night and everyone got really drunk. Around 4 a.m. everyone started to look for a place to sleep. Unfortunately, one of the rooms containing 3 beds and a few sleeping bags had been occupied by one of the twins and his girlfriend. So 14 of us had to all pile into one double bed. I was sleeping between one of the twins and another friend of mine. He was talking non-stop with some girl, but I didn't mind because I had somewhere to sleep. About 4:30, I'm talking to my friend when his face suddenly turns white. From behind me, I hear a slow creaking sound. It slowly gets louder. I was in shock. After a minute, he stops and I hear a sigh. I hold up my hand and he high-fives me. And that is how my best friend lost his virginity. In conclusion, friend lost virginity in a bed with 14 people, followed by a high five. In high school, after our track team won the county title, which we weren't supposed to win, we all wanted to get really drunk, but had nowhere to do so. That's when one of the seniors suggested that we drink at the abandoned house across the street from his. It wasn't really abandoned, it was fully furnished, just didn't have electricity on, and the owners had been MIA for a few months according to him. The party itself was pretty cool, a majority of the people brought lanterns and flashlights along with the hooch. It started getting out of hand, and at its peak about 150 people were there, which isn't really huge, but for our high school that was quite large. That's about when the cops showed up, which was standard practice for our parties. We all booked it, and since most of us were in peak physical condition, the cops pretty much gave up chasing us after a block. All of us got away, except my best friend. In his escape, he jumped out of a first-story window and landed on a cop. He pretty much just gave up at that point. Someone yelled, "Fusro da," and then loudly crapped themselves. Please elaborate. The guy had drunk like 7 shots of vodka in an hour. He had been giggling at the slice of the pizza he had dropped on the floor and then started crawling around on the floor. He yelled that and then crapped himself. It was pretty funny, but the smell was awful. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.